welcoming you to the INTUNE podcast with myself, Ashley Velvet Frost. I am a holistic coach and deep diver of life, fascinated with the interconnectedness and uniqueness of our individual life and healing journeys. We are not one size fits all when it comes to thriving in our health and well-being. We are a combination of our physical, emotional, intellectual, energetical, and spiritual bodies. It's my mission to support others in building their own unique toolkit for holistic living. I believe that knowing yourself deeply can in turn change your world. In this podcast, we'll be following the INTUNE 5 frequencies, a method for empowering you to become your own self-healer and bring your life back into alignment. The brainwave frequencies gamma, beta, alpha, theta, and delta relate to topic areas of mind, connections, body, direction, and spirit. You'll be hearing from inspiring people who are embodying these 5 frequencies, collecting insights, stories, tips, coaching, and guaranteed new ways of living in tune. So welcome everybody to the first episode of the INTUNE podcast with myself, Ashley Velvet Frost. And today's episode will not be featuring any guests. I am here to give you an introduction to INTUNE, the method, the process, the vision, everything behind this, and to give you a little introduction to the podcast and the guests that we'll all be featuring. So, INTUNE, what is INTUNE about? The vision for INTUNE really is for people to be their own self-healers. And really the ethos is that if you know yourself, you can change your world. Whether your world is with your own sphere, whether your world is the global sphere around you or your community, but the inner work and healing of yourself is really where it begins. So the mission of INTUNE is to provide people with tools, methods, practices, inspiration, and everything of the above to really inspire their own ability to be their own healer. Now that sounds very vague and broad, and we'll go into a bit more detail as to what that actually means. So the INTUNE method was founded by myself after a multitude of directions and healing journeys going on. The method focuses around the 5 brainwave frequencies that we have. So gamma, beta, alpha, theta, and delta. Now, before you worry about this being very scientific, I promise that there's no heavy information and science within the different frequencies, and I will touch on them a little bit later. So just to introduce myself a little bit, my name is Ashley Velvet Frost. I am from the UK, currently living in Amsterdam. I grew up in Germany, so feeling very international, very not at home in the UK, so quickly found myself moving countries. And during this whole process of studying university, following the process of what everyone tells you to do in life, I found myself in corporate, having studied law in German, then working as a project manager, and following this process that we are kind of handed to us at a very young age. So go to uni, get a good job, save for the house, get the marriage, and then enjoy your life once you retire in the future. Now the world is shifting. That's not working for people. So when we used to have the cliche of the midlife crisis, we're now getting millennials coming up with quarter-life crises. Things like burnout are on the rise, mental health is on the rise, and the whole world is essentially struggling with the structures that we have in place. So I found myself having a burnout age 26, a lot of illnesses, a lot of things that had been following me my whole life, and I'd never really been able to get any support from modern medicine. There was nothing overtly wrong with me. And to the point of being told by the doctors, like, yeah, you have chronic fatigue, like it takes 1 to 2 years to heal, off you go. And kind of being left with the mental repercussions of that as well. So having gone through many processes in my life of depression, of struggling with mental health, of having major life traumas occurred, not just around the pandemic, but things such as intense breakups, changing jobs, pregnancy, lots of different things that were arising in life, and never really being given the tools and the support in life to overcome these. So INTUNE is really, once I'd started my, let's call it healing journey, and this is a very broad term. For me, healing journey is an individual process that you go on to either heal from something that has happened, a major life event, a major imbalance that is inside you, something maybe you've inherited. The topics are very, very broad. And the healing journey, you can almost picture it like the hero's journey. And we've all watched movies where there's a hero, such as a knight, going off to fight in a battle or slay a dragon. And there's the hero's journey, which is a concept also written by Joseph Campbell, is really how I picture everyone's healing journeys. We do not really go on just one in our life, we go on multiple cycles of these. And yeah, for me, the trigger of this was really intense sickness, intense burnout, realizing that the life I was living, the job I was working, the industry I was working in, the way I was working, the way I was relating with my emotions, all of these things, the way I was relating with people in my life, these were all not in alignment and integrity with how I wanted to live my life. So the healing journey began, and I am somebody who enjoys to go and try everything. It's manifesting generator, if you know human design. This is, we like to do lots of different things, trying lots of different projects and processes to see what fits and what doesn't fit. So I really went across the broad spectrum of healing journeys, trying things such as emotional release, therapy, physical detoxes, fasting, spiritual detoxes, going to ayahuasca ceremonies, trying with plant medicine, really going into what I thought were the necessary different routes to see what was working. Now, along this journey, I learned a lot of things. Along this journey, I gained a lot of knowledge. And for me, it was very useful that I was noticing it doesn't really matter which area of your life is out of balance, but if you can find tools from many different places, then when eventually, naturally, life brings us challenges, life brings us things that are obstacles to overcome. It's also the beautiful endeavor of being a human on this planet, that if you have the practices and tools and wisdom, insights to be able to check in with yourself, okay, what do I need in this moment? What can I draw on? What resources can I draw on? Are they internal, external? And being able to then have this huge toolkit available to you to navigate through life. So this is kind of where INTUNE arose from. It's focusing around these 5 areas of your life. And if everything in your life is aligned, then things will be flowing. You'll be like being faced with natural challenges, which are always something to be encouraged. It's not something you don't want to have a life where you're really not having faced any challenges at all, because that's also where you get to use your creativity. That's where you get to bring in your spirit. And that's also not something to be advising against. But normally there's an area in our life that we're working on. So a little overview of the 5 frequencies. You have your mind, you have the connections in your life, the physical body, the direction, and your spirit. And these are very, very broad topics, and I will go into them in more detail. And the reason that I put them in this, let's say, constellation is if you look at the brainwave frequencies, the gamma, beta, alpha, theta, delta, and you look at the image of how busy the frequencies are and the concept that our brain is in at that time. So the actual energy that it is going through, they matched quite well with the different frequencies. So for example, gamma is the busiest of the brainwave frequencies. This is almost the brainwave frequency of young children, of the busyness and the things going on in the mind. Within this is also insight and expanded consciousness. Then going down to beta is all about concentration and learning. And then alpha is more relaxation, reflection. Theta, more dreaming and flow states. And delta, deep healing and sleep. And these almost go in a progression of busyness to calmness. And the same with the INTUNE frequencies. They go from a state of starting with the things immediately in front of you and progressing more to the more relaxed areas. Now, the INTUNE method, if you are coming in and where we have lots of different products and things for people to use, you can come in and just do one frequency. If you think, okay, I've got connections in my life are playing up, or money is playing up, or my connection to my spirit is playing up, you can come in and just do one of the frequencies. But the beautiful aspect of going through this whole process of INTUNE is that if you can go through all 5, you're going to be learning skills for tools, methods that you may not need right now, but you're going to need probably in the future. You're going to probably go through times when at some point in your life, one of these areas goes out of balance. And that's the beautiful aspect of INTUNE, just growing and growing and growing, and all of these things that you can pick and choose what suits for you. I found a very big aversion when I started working with coaches and on programs where people are kind of dictating to you, this is what you need to heal, that this is what you need to have a happy life or feel better, this process, this exact method, follow my thing, A, B, C, D, E. And for me, I know that having worked with many people as a coach, that people are very individual. People are very different. You cannot say to one person, this fits, and then say to the other, that's the same. So for me, it's very important that we provide the tools, you provide the information, and then people can use the ones that suit them. So that's a little bit about the method and how it can be applied. How I personally work with people when we go through this process, which is a holistic view of your life, is going through from frequency 1 to frequency 5. So 5-month process, deep dive into the different areas. Now, the different frequencies, gamma is the first one. So as I said, this is your mind. Gamma is essentially the understanding that everything you see in your environment, your results, your success, is a direct mirror reflection back to your mindset. So everything that you think about yourself, you believe about yourself, is going to be reflected in the outside world. Now, this is kind of a hard pill to swallow sometimes, because if you're not seeing results, if you're not seeing the money coming in, if you're not seeing the success, or the business isn't working, or your company is not working, or your team isn't working as well as you'd like them to, this is also inherently a reflection of what's going on inside. So the mind area is really going into your beliefs, your paradigms, shifting limiting beliefs, looking at exactly the goal and what it is you are trying to bring into fruition, and knowing that everything on your outside is also not just the thoughts you're having, but the mind area controls your whole environment. So we also go into more practical things. So think of your external world. This would be like your home, your timing, your planning, your rituals, really a lot of the more grounded, down to earth, external environment topics. So this is the first aspect of the gamma frequency. Then you would be moving on to beta, which is your connections. Now, this comes under essentially relationships, essentially all relationships in your life, be it your family, your friends, your romantic, your business, your community, the global relationships you have. These are all looking at various different topics inside of this. So we have people coming in about family constellation, inner child work, relationship styles, communication styles, attachment styles, often knowing that the majority of your relationships and connections are improved once you do the work on your inside. In this also touches a lot on social impact, because we're talking about the global community, about your local community, and really ways that we can be of service and be in connection with other people as well. So for me, that's one of my favorite of the frequencies, because it involves other people on a human level and a connection and heart open level. So then the third frequency that we have is alpha. And this is the broadest, I have to admit. This is the broadest of the frequencies, because it's covering the human body. It's covering the vessel that you are currently wearing, this human body that we're walking around on this planet in. And within this is covering things such as fitness, nutrition, movement, rest, hormones, the hormone cycle in particular of the women, and things such as burnout and supplements. So this topic is immense. You can cover things such as sports and fitness, going to yoga, going to breath work, like movement exercises, fasting, diets. This is huge. Majority of my guests tend to come somewhere around this topic, or they're bleeding into other of the frequencies as well. So this is, very, very potent, very important. And there's a lot of things out there that we have not heard about, or you hear about a little bit in the hearsay and news, maybe particular diets or particular methods and fasting and all of these weird things, that having people on this podcast who are going to be explaining these things just brings so much clarity, and it expands our mindset a little bit. So moving then on to the fourth frequency, which is theta, which is your direction, which is your purpose, your passions, your vision. Where are you going? What is this mission that you're on whilst you're here on this planet? And for me, this was something that, having suffered from a burnout, which was incredibly linked to not feeling fulfilled in what I was doing and my purpose and what I was genuinely waking up for every day to get out of bed and make a difference here on this planet. This is almost a pandemic of purpose crisis going on. The rate of burnout is going up so high, regardless of if you're millennial or older. The feeling of not knowing what we're here for is really shifted in the last generations. Really shifted from working the same job for 40 years and just kind of getting through the week and that's just how things are done, to now having a multitude of options in the world, multitude of places to go to, things to do. FOMO is a real thing, fear of missing out. Not knowing if you've committed to one thing, that then you're going to get the fear that you've missed out on something else. This can also translate to, even I see with people dating, or going on dating apps. It's like the fear of commitment means that potentially you're missing out on other areas of life. So this runs very deep. This runs very current to what is going on currently in the world. And in this frequency, we have people who are really embodying their purpose, defining purpose, which is also such a subjective, individual thing, not allowing somebody else to tell you what your purpose is. And in this frequency, heavily is featured people such as entrepreneurs and people setting up their own businesses and really inspiring and leading the way. Which then brings us onto the last frequency, which is Delta, spirit, spirituality, your connection to your inner self. Now, this is also a topic that I've frequently asked clients before what their perception is of spirituality, what their definition is. And it's nowadays something that people really struggle to answer. It seems that religion is really slipping away out of society. And in a way that people used to be able to come together at church or regardless of whichever religious establishment, but really come together in community, come together in a sense of collective prayer and collective reassurance and being here for each other, and this deeper connection to something bigger than us. Now, this is missing nowadays. Most people do not really identify with a religion and are trying to sometimes find their own way, and this is also beautiful, but we're never really given any guidance about this. We're never really given any tips and tricks on how to connect to this hugely subjective path ourselves. So within this frequency, you'll hear things around meditation, spirituality, shamanism, energy work, archetypes, constellations, ancestral work, a lot more of the, let's say, more magical, the more mystical, the more unknown things that are not often talked about in society. So we leave that one to the last of the frequencies because it's often the thing that comes last for a lot of people. But again, this is your process and I'm not going to tell you how to do your process. Yeah, so that brings us a little bit back onto this actual podcast, the INTUNE podcast, the holistic 5 frequencies. Now, we have guests we'll be featuring on this week in, week out, and they are embodying the frequencies. So usually one or maybe two of the frequencies, and it's people who are deeply, deeply embodying this, living it, inspiring people with their work, with their journeys. And for me, it's just the biggest of honors to feature these people, some of them dear friends, some of them people I've been admiring in industries for years. And essentially, I'm going to be honest with you guys, it's essentially like getting a free coaching session for the podcast hour. Sometimes it's longer because there's so much to talk about with these people and so many ideas, so many tips and insights that they have. And I just know you're going to get so much information from this and such varied information. Truly, the variety of topics, there's going to be some things you're like, I didn't even know I needed to know this. And this has really planted a seed and shifting my healing journey in a particular way. So likewise, if you are listening to this and you start listening to some of the episodes and you're like, I know some people who should be featured on this. I know people who maybe are not hugely famous, but they're making waves and ripples in your own circle, in your life. Maybe they were your teachers, your own healers. Maybe it's you. I'm also up for people who are like tooting their own horn because, come on, we want to hear your story. We want to hear what you're about. And if that's the case, you can always reach out to me via the podcast. You can always reach out to me on socials at intune.life or at Ashley V. Frost. And just know that I'm grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that you're listening. And we are about to witness some true magic. So, yeah, let's begin. Let's buckle up. Let's get ourselves in tune, getting our life in balance, getting our frequencies in balance, getting ourselves educated and knowledge given and how to live our best life and really change our worlds. So I will see you guys on the rest of the podcast.